Hello and welcome to TLJC Talks. I'm your host, John Reynolds, and today we are going to be talking about the truth of the tribulation. There are three different theories, the pre-tribulation theory, the mid-tribulation theory, and the post-tribulation theory. First of all, we're going to talk about the pre-tribulation theory, which practically states that the purpose of the rapture is get the believers off the earth before God's wrath, including the first 3.5 years of peace. So then the earth, the rest of them that have rejected God are still here, left to their own demise. And their verse for proof of this is 1 Thessalonians 5:9, which says, "For God hath not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ." Now, the problems with this, we will ask our guest speaker today, which is Lauren Reynolds and my grandpa. We had him on the show before, and here he is.
A verse which they've taken out of context is Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, which is the last 7 years of the 70-week prophecy, which covers the time of the first coming when Christ was on earth and was ministering for 3.5 years. That is where you get the time period of 7 years for the tribulation. There's some suggestion that the first 3.5 years there is a time of peace, but with the pre-trib they take you out the beginning of the 7 years rather than wait until the time of tribulation happens at mid-trib or 3.5 years later.
Now, speaking of the mid-tribulation, that's our next theory. The mid-tribulation rapture theory. Another one of those. The Reverend Morgan Edwards mentioned this version of the rapture in his book, Millennium Last Day Novelties. He basically took out the time that of the estimated tribulation, which, as we know, is taken out of context, and said that once the trouble starts, then they'll be swept away just before that. And again, we're going to go with our guest speaker on the problems of this and the explanation of where their reason even comes from.
One of the big problems is that they say that last 7 years was cut off from the 70 weeks prophecy and moved ahead to the time of the second coming. Why would it be chopped off there when it's obvious that the context has Titus taking Jerusalem and destroying the city? There's no reason for it to have been moved from 33 AD all the way to 2000 and something in the future.
Now, our last theory is the post-tribulation theory, which simply states that after everything is all said and done, God is going to come back to judge this earth. But he's going to take up his people in the air, and as every rapture theory out there says. And on screen here you see questions that a person has presented to this. Why would the wedding feast of the Lamb take place before the Great Tribulation? So they are asking the question of why wouldn't it be this? Now, again, we're going to go again to our guest speaker after this verse that they use for proof for this one. Revelation 11:15 says, "And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever." Now, we get back to the post-tribulation. We're going to talk about the problems with it. Okay. Our guest speaker will again.
The big problem with the post-trib is there's no evidence that it would have taken place at the second coming. The verse that it's based on is in the book of Daniel, and already has taken place about almost 2,000 years ago.
Now, overall, we're going to talk about all of the problems with each one, as said on here, by the concerns of the opposite side. Problems with the pre-trib by the opposite side, like the other two sides would say. Well, here's a good example. In the verse that they used for their evidence, 1 Thessalonians 5:9, they clearly took it out of context because it says it's a comparison of salvation. Now, in the use of wrath here is made to compare it to salvation, because Paul likes to use comparisons in this section here. In verses 4 and 5, he compares the darkness and the light. These are a few examples. In fact, we're going to go through and look at the verses ourselves. 1 Thessalonians 5:1 through 12. "But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, Peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." There is our number one comparison right there. "But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that the day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all the children of the light, and the children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of the darkness." Again, he's trying to draw a stark comparison between day and night, sinners, Christians. "And therefore let us not sleep." And in it saying sleep means don't be put to sleep by all the things that are going on around you, because it says in the end that they'll be drinking, they'll be marrying and doing things normal, like they were before the flood. And then the flood happened. Same thing here. Don't be put asleep by, oh, he's not coming, as do others. But let us watch and be sober and be ready. For they that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. Another comparison. But let us, who are of the day, who are Christians, be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet, the hope of salvation. For God hath not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ. So the context here is from 5:8. It's telling us to put on faith, love, and the hope of salvation, and not to be angry, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ. In 5:10 it says, who died for us, that whether we wake or sleep, we should live together with him. Therefore, comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even as also ye do. And we beseech you, brethren, to know them which labor among you, and are over you in the Lord, and admonish you. So that's the range of the verses that shows the comparisons of what Paul is trying to get across. It's not about tribulation. Now, problems with the mid-tribulation. We will now go to our guest speaker again to help us.
The references in the third chapter of Revelation will begin with verse 7. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, the words of the Holy One, the true One, who has the key of David, who opens and no one shall shut, who shuts and no one opens. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and learn that I have loved you. Because you have kept my word of patient endurance, I will keep you from the hour of trial which is coming on the whole world, to try them who dwell upon the earth. And that is where they get the idea of the connection with the church in Philadelphia, that the hour of trial is going to come on the whole earth. The problem is the church of Philadelphia is long gone. It happened probably in the 1st or 2nd century A.D. And the rapture did not occur then. At least we have no record of the Christians all lately.
So the conclusion is these verses have been used incorrectly because they have been utterly taken out of context, correct?
That's right. They're definitely taken out of context. So the basis for this particular theory is based on something that's inaccurate to start with.
And that concludes today's TLJC Talk. I am your host, John Reynolds, and our guest speaker was Lauren Reynolds. And thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.